Hello, everyone. We are live. Welcome to episode number 15, the Gretsch Afternoon Drum Break. I am your host, Neil LaFortune. Welcome. Thank you very much for stopping by and listening and watching today. I'm really excited to bring on today's guest, all the way from Estonia. But I'm going to do a little shout out first and thank my friend Lucas von Gretsch for introducing my guest and myself today. If it weren't for him, I wouldn't be interviewing Mr. Mike Miley. Before I bring him on, I would like to, one of the things that I love about Gretsch drums, and I could go on about them, and I do, one of the things I love about Gretsch drums is the loyalty of the fan base, the Gretsch owners. Harry Kangany, who is a well-known vintage drum expert from Indianapolis. He once said that Gretsch drum fans are possibly the most rabid and loyal to any brand that are out there. And I think the bottom line is that because the drums sound the way that they do, regardless of how they look, and they look amazing too, and they have such a legacy and such a long-standing company with such legendary drummers, but they sound amazing. So what I'm going to do, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to introduce to you my guest, Miley, the drummer for Rival Sons. They have 6 albums and 1 EP out. The latest release is from 2019's Feral Roots, and I've been listening to this music, and it is unbelievable. I've just sent Mike a request to join the video. If you want to click on that, Mike, and you can join me here, and we can talk about your past graduation from California State University at Long Beach in percussion. Man, this guy has seen the world, opened for such bands as Deep Purple, Black Sabbath, Alice Cooper, AC/DC, Kid Rock, and they are unbelievable. So I'm waiting for Mr. Mike Miley. I sent him a request to join the video here. You just need to click on that and accept that you want to join, and we are going to bring him on. I hope everybody's having an awesome summer day. It is, again, an incredible day. It's probably 82 Fahrenheit. Ooh, I'm going to see if I can. Mr. Mike Miley, try and add you. I sent it to you again, my friend. Let's see about joining us here. Hey, I like all these people. Hey, Ian, how are you? Yeah, lots of people. Oh, there he is. Mr. Mike Miley, how are you, my friend?
I'm good, man. Could you guys hear me? I'm at a blues festival in the middle of nowhere in Estonia.
Wow, that's pretty awesome. I hear you fine. It sounds good, man, and I'm glad
Okay.
you got a little bit of quiet in there. How long have you been at the festival?
A couple hours. I actually did the math wrong. I thought we were going live 2 hours ago. So I apologize to anybody who's following me. I just posted 2 hours ago, going now.
That's
And
it's crazy.
but I did the math wrong. I'm still getting used to the European time.
Yes, and it's daylight there. What time is it there now?
9 p.m. We're pretty north, so it'll get dark about midnight.
Wow, that's pretty awesome, right? Must be. How long have you been in Estonia?
Since middle of June.
Pretty tough with the lockdown and no touring and no playing. Is that why you're there?
Yeah, well, actually, I go there. My family goes there every summer, and my wife is from Estonia, so we built a cottage on her parents' property, and then so when I'm gone, I'm usually gone all summer. So usually in Europe, and so the wife and kids are there with grandparents and family and aunts and uncles, and so and I've sort of, I don't know why I'm not playing tonight. I think I'm sitting in with 2 bands from now. They wanted me to play. It's like a blues festival in the middle of nowhere. And yeah, there's no masks, there's no crazy fear, there's nothing. Everybody's, I guess Estonia, they're built, they're different kind of human here. or it's Viking blood. I don't know what it is.
Wow. Well, I'm glad you could join us. I really appreciate it. I've been watching your videos now. I was aware of you maybe a couple of years ago, and I had seen your Gretsch videos and went, "Who's this tattooed guy playing these Gretsch snare drums?" And man, he's got good hands and a really good sound. And you look like when you play like an educated drummer. Can we go back to the beginning? You grew up in Long Beach, California, correct?
Yeah, yeah. Well, so I was born in Northern California, and then hold on, somebody needs to get in the
This is great.
in the my sister-in-law needs to get something out of the back of the car.
That's awesome.
So so I was born up in Northern California, and then moved to Southern California in like third grade, and then fourth grade I got a drum set for my birthday, and my dad was a guitar player, and my family's real musical. So I mean, it was everything from the Beatles to Boz Scaggs to the Eagles to Led Zeppelin and Cream to Steely Dan. Steely Dan's still one of my favorite bands of all time. Yeah. So my dad was growing up, he was always into the studio musicians that were playing on the albums. And so I'd be like 5 or 6 years old, and he's like, "That's Steve Gadd on drums." And I'm like 5. I'm going, oh, "Okay, all right, Dad." But it's amazing because, like, I mean, when I hear Green Earrings come on, or Peg, or Josie, like bum 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 bum, like it just reminds me of driving through Berkeley in my dad's car, just those old memories and the soundtrack of your childhood. So back to your question, so my soundtrack of my childhood is all like amazing drummers, so Jeff Porcaro, Steve Gadd, and Phil Collins. Woo. And Phil Collins, "In the Air Tonight," it was what got me playing drums. And so I wish I could see the comments better on my feed. Let me see. Just I do a live stream now on my YouTube channel, Miley on Drums, and so I'm getting good at this interaction thing. So I don't know if that answers your question, but
absolutely, that's great. Did you start with any lessons, or were you playing with your dad, or were you playing to records? How did that work out?
I would say, well, okay, so I got my drums when I was 9, and then my parents were like, "You should probably take some lessons," and I was like, "Okay." And so my first lesson, yes, I like early Genesis, Phil Collins. My first lesson, he goes, "What do you want to learn?" And I said, "Little Black Spot on the Sun Today and Rosanna." So I didn't know it was called King of Pain, by the Police. Yeah. And because I wanted to go, just that famous, like, Stuart Copeland. When you're a kid and you're just getting into drums, like, Stuart Copeland's one of the most lyrical drummers ever. I mean, if you think about it, like, who made you like want to like touch your lips or lick your lips when you hear him play? It's lyrical. That's all I can say. And it caught my ear, all those tones that the drums can have and how percussive it could be. And so Stuart's a big one, a big influence, because when I was a kid, the Police was in that final album cycle, Synchronicity. And so and then at that era, Michael Jackson was coming out. So Thriller was our first CD we had. When CDs first came out, we had Thriller, Toto 4, and Eagles' Greatest Hits. Yep. That's like, I mean, that was playing all the time. So, I mean, my I call it drummer DNA, like what you kind of what kind of just infused into your body was, you know, all those great Jeff Porcaro, Steve Gadd, Phil Collins, Stuart Copeland, all the drummers of Steely Dan, really, you know, Jim Keltner, and so.
Art, right. So what did your teacher say when you said that you wanted to learn this stuff?
He laughed, and then and he was like, okay, you know, and he wrote down. I wish I had all my old music books. I have I love Don Henley, yeah. I wish I had all my old music books, because a tangent. I transcribed like 15 or 20 Tower Power songs, and then I went on tour with Dave Garibaldi for a summer, and like hung out in his hotel room while he was writing The Funky Beat, and it's one of his drum books, and I brought my spiral, you know, staff paper notebook with all my Tower Power transcriptions, and I'm a super nerd, so I don't know if we got there yet, but Dave Garibaldi corrected it with a red pen, and he corrected all my transcriptions. It was pretty cool.
Were you teching for him?
No. I was playing in a samba band opening for Mickey Hart and Bob Weir. Yep. It was on the Further tour, Further Festival. That was the year after Jerry Garcia passed away.
86.
And members of the Dead got together and had their own bands. Bob Weir had Rat Dog. Mickey Hart had Mystery Box, I think it was called. And so we were a samba troupe, like five drummers and 3 dancers. We had the dancers with the huge Rio de Janeiro Carnival outfits, sequin G strings, tassels on the nipples, like full on samba, Brazil Carnival, and Mickey Hart had us sit in every night, and we paraded through the parking lot, all the hippies there, because the Grateful Dead was all about tailgating, you know, so we would go through the parking lot and do that. And then Bruce Hornsby was on that tour. I sat in with him.
That's
Hot Tuna. So, yeah. Like, and Jack Cassidy was on bass, and like, it was for a young dude who's just, you know, I was studying Brazilian drums like a mother, and that's all I was doing, is playing percussion for a lot of years. I mean, I was always playing drum set. I was always in bands and doing blues gigs and stuff in college to pay my bills, and I was in a calypso band. I played steel drums and drum set in college, and but yeah, so when I was studying all the Brazilian drums, Chalo Eduardo's Sergio Mendes' percussionist for like 20 years, and then Chalo moved to like artist relations at for the Latin percussion line at Remo, and so anyway, so Chalo was my teacher, and he was the one who got us the gigs with Santana and Mickey Hart, and we played with Ricky Martin. So it was fun just playing. I mean, I'll go play samba right now with a batucada. Like, if I lived in Rio, I would be playing in Carnival every year. But it's my favorite, like, hands down, Brazilian music is probably like my favorite. Next to the Beatles, if there's Beatles and Brazilian music, I don't know which one I would choose.
What an incredible background. Now, to look at what you do with Rival Sons, even though there's a lot of influences in there, I wouldn't have guessed that you had that experience early on, and that has certainly contributed to the depth of the playing that you have really in all the projects that you would play now, because you can draw from so many different wells, from Stuart Copeland, from Garibaldi, from the Brazilian stuff, to Bonham, it sounds like, to Porcaro and all those, and Steve Gadd, all those cats. When did you learn to read music?
I would say junior year in high school, 16 years old, I joined the jazz band. I quit football. I used to play sports like all through my childhood, so a lot of my drum lessons didn't stick really well in my early formative years. But it was the music was just in the house, and my dad was just constantly putting on records, and And so junior, I quit football. I sprained my ankle, and I had been playing drums, jamming with some guys. I think it was sophomore year in high school, and then sprained my ankle in spring football, and I couldn't play my drums for like 5 weeks. And I walk in the coach's office with my helmet, and I set it on the desk, and I said, "Coach, that's it. I'm going to join the band." And he said I would regret it, and I don't think I did. I don't think I've regretted it yet. All my friends were having reconstructive knee surgeries when they're like 15, 16 years old, and I'm like, dude, I love sports. I love competing, and I love sticking somebody. I play defensive back, so if you were a receiver and I was covering you, you should have been scared. But but the injuries that go along with playing full contact sports that's gnarly. When you watch NFL football now, it's like, holy cow, how hard those guys hit. But then I joined the jazz band. Chuck Wackerman was my band director, and of the Brooks Wackerman, Chad Wackerman, John Wackerman, all the Wackerman brothers are all insanely talented drummers and bass players. And so that's when I started reading charts and learning how to read charts. And then I was studying with Chuck Wackerman as well. So, he would try to get us to do snare drum etudes and stuff, but in high school, man, I was like long hair hippie, like let's jam, man, let's play some Panama. At the time I was in a band, and my guitar player was all about Eddie Van Halen. So, but I was getting that those two worlds were kept colliding, because my other drummer buddies in jazz band and all that stuff. I went to Orange County High School of the Arts, so there's a lot of talented people going through there. And so one of my drummer buddies turned me on to. He gave me a 90-minute cassette of Frank Zappa, Tinseltown Rebellion, and I forgot what was on the other side. And then he gave me Shut Up and Play Your Guitar with Vinnie Colaiuta on it, and Gretsch Artist. And then he gave me Joe's Garage, and changed my life for forever. So because the Zappa rabbit hole, if you're a drummer and if you're not familiar with Zappa, and I'm sure there's a lot of drummers in here. I'm trying to look through the comments here. I'm sure there's a lot of drummers watching. Like, if you got to get into Zappa, because it's like a requirement. Just to go get Tinseltown Rebellion. It's amazing. It's wacky, funny lyrics. Yeah. It's about a band making it in Hollywood, and it's really funny and comical. And then there's Shut Up and Play Your Guitar, purely an instrumental. And anyway, I think I did a roundabout answer to your question, but that's when I started reading music, was high school. So
this is absolutely fantastic. When did Gretsch drums enter your life? I'm going to have a drink too, my friend. Cheers to everyone. Out of the Gretsch mug.
This is I'm driving tonight, so this is non-alcoholic, and I'm being serious. This is an it's an IPA, and it's non-alcoholic. It's amazing. I love IPAs, and so there's a non-alcoholic one. Yeah, I love Chester Thompson, Roxy and Elsewhere, man. Going back home to the village of the sun. It's double drummers, Ralph Humphreys and Chester Thompson. It's insane.
Yeah.
So I can riff on all this drummer geek stuff. I love it. I love that you asked me to interview with you. So I'm happy to be here, by the way.
I'm really grateful to, and all of the Gretsch guests have been incredibly supportive and just willing to share and talk about Gretsch drums. Now, was Gretsch the first drum kit you had, or when did they appear in your life?
Okay, so the Gretsch, my best friend in junior high, he was in the jazz band, and we were best friends, and we played baseball together. And then after a baseball game, we had heard each other was a drummer, and then it was like kind of like sizing them up. I was a new kid. We had just moved in 6th grade, and my buddy Ryan Stevens, and I don't know if Ryan's watching, but we're like, and I was like, "Don't You Forget About Me" by Simple Minds, and he's like, "Oh, me too. That's my favorite song." He's like, "Why don't you come over to my house and play it?" And I'm like, "Okay." So I went to his house, and his mom made us grilled cheese sandwiches, and we tried to play Rosanna, and we were trying to play 2112 and Tom Sawyer, and of course, Don't You Forget About Me. Don't You Forget About Me. Come on, that's one of the the quintessential 80s groove, you know. So that's how I met my buddy. Anyway, he had a Gretsch drum set, and so that was my first time. He was in the jazz band, and then he got into this band called Flannel Nation in high school, and I was super jealous of him all the time. And he had a cherry red stain. He still has it, and it's in his closet. Ryan, your drums are in your closet. That's not where they belong. And actually, I always love those drums, and they're full. The '80s ones, like let's see. I'm so bad at sizes. You do the depth first, right? So they were the long ones. So like the 10-inch tom was like by 10, 12 by 12, 4, So I always like the shallower drums. But that's where I first got turned on to Gretsch, and then Fullerton College Jazz Band. I played in the Fullerton College Jazz Band, the junior college. We had a jazz festival. We used to travel around. We went to Australia, Vegas. We went all over the place. So that was I spent 3 years at the JC, Fullerton JC. I played in jazz band there. They had a black Gretsch, and I've never been a gear nerd to the point of where I know what model it was, so I couldn't even tell you what model, if it was a broadcaster or if it was an old Gretsch. It wasn't round badge, but it was probably late 70s, early 80s, a black Gretsch, and it was super hard to change the heads because Gretsch has their little 1 millimeter difference thing, but that's what makes Gretsch like quirky and like the best, and it's that great Gretsch sound. It makes changing heads. I have to order. Thank God I play Aquarian drum heads, because Aquarian makes somehow they make it so the heads fit on really nice. Is it the vintage line? I'm not sure, but Chris Brady, if you're watching, I'm sorry, I don't know the specs. I'm terrible at specs, and what is like Peisty made the big beat line with me in mind. And Eric Peisty called me, and he's like, "Hey, will you debut these and do the posters and the promo for this?" And I'm like, "Me? Wow!" And I can't tell you like how if it's alloy or if it's brass or I don't know. And like the cymbals are made for me. I wanted a giant beat and 2002. If they were to make a baby, that's kind of what the big beats are. If you're a Peisty fan, the big beats are like the best, I guess, live. I did the Feral Roots album, Rival Sons, on the 602 Modern Essentials. So if you listen to Feral Roots, I did those on the Modern Essentials, the Vinny 602s.
Yeah, oh, beautiful.
They're quieter, darker. So when you're in the studio, and Rival Sons, we use a lot of compression on the drums, if you can imagine. So you can't be bashing cymbals. So part of being a great studio guy is, and if you're studio and then studio live, you have to have both those techniques in your arsenal. Because especially if you're using compression, you can't be bashing cymbals. But if you watch me live, I'm bashing the hell out of everything. So live is a whole different ball game. But in the studio, the Modern when you're trying to lay back on the cymbal sound, the Modern Essentials are probably the best the best recording cymbals. I did the first album on the Giant Beats. First two albums on the Giant Beats. Then I used the 2002s on Pressure and Time. And then an assortment on Great Western Valkyrie. Anyway, the Modern Essentials are on the last album. But yeah, Giant Beat 24. I think that's the only ride that Giant Beats make is the 24. But
that's
back to Gretsch.
Let's talk. I want to go back in time here before Rival Sons and ask you how the gig came about to be in the house band for the Carson Daly TV show.
So shout out to Joe Firstman. He's I guess on Instagram he's Cordovas, and it's a great band like Americana rock. And Joe Firstman had a deal with Atlantic Records. We opened for Sheryl Crow, Willie Nelson, Hootie and the Blowfish. We opened for everybody back in the early 2000s, and then his album did okay. It's I think it charted in AAA and stuff. We went all over, and then after his album, Atlantic didn't re-sign him. So, sorry, the beer's catching up with me. Atlantic didn't re-sign him, and then Carson Daly offered him the house band band leader.
Wow.
And so, being in his inner circle, and at the time we started this thing called the Kids Cotton Club at a place called Guys in Hollywood on Sunday nights. It was a jazz jam, jazz funk, and all sorts of people would roll through there because Danny Masterson from That 70s Show and Joe Firstman were the two promoters of that gig. And so it was, my drums were always the house kit there. And so Ronald Bruner would come through, Tony Royster came through, lots of great drummers, Donald Barrett. Donald Barrett was one of the kind of regulars in the Carson Daly mix. So there was me, Paul Allen, and Donald Barrett, and we're kind of like the main guys. And then I'm spacing on the other guy's last name. David Goodstein. David Goodstein's amazing drummer. He's playing a lot with Linda Perry right now. Right. So you can follow all these guys on Instagram. But anyway, so there was like a pool of musicians, and so they filmed every Tuesday and Thursday. So two episodes a day, and so it was like I was kind of a token rock guy, you know. So like when I would show up, the band would be kind of geared towards like doing like Black Keys riffs and White Stripes, and we did like Zeppelin and The Who and you know all that stuff. I mean, that's like my favorite shit. I'm like Ginger Baker. I'm kind of arrogantly call myself a funk drummer. But so yeah. So I got called on all the rock nights, and then we started writing. We were doing riffs, and so we realized we're like giving all this money to the Black Keys and White Stripes, Jack White and Dan Auerbach, and all these guys are getting our publishing, and then we're like, we can write riffs like that. So we started writing our riffs on the show. So that was like my first intro to publishing too. So that was really good for on the music business side of stuff. We're always talking gear and drummer rhythms and paradiddle diddles and paradiddle diddle diddles and para diddle diddles and inverted para diddle diddles, and like, you know, we can go on for days on different stickings and rhythmic combinations, but it's like the music business is like where we're gonna make the money and make the deals and sign the deals and know what to sign. And as drummers, you know, we get the short end of the stick a lot, no pun intended. Yeah. So the music business is a big part. So that was really great. My dream was I used to watch Letterman religiously, and Leno and all the late night guys always had the great bands. And so on the Sheryl Crow tour, when we were opening for her, Sean Pelton was the drummer. like 30, 40 years now. Sean Pelton's still playing on Saturday Night Live. And so I started nerding out with him, and he turned me on to Scotch and cigars. And so so we developed this friendship, you know, and I took lessons with him. And I'd go into his studio, and he'd have a chart, or he'd have what do you call it? Like a legal pad, so no chart. And then he'd just play a song, and he would act like a producer. And he'd be like, "Yo, we only got like 20 minutes, okay? I gotta play you the song. You gotta take the notes, and then we're gonna roll tape. Okay, you ready? You ready? Play the song. Boom. Count. Okay, 4-bar intro. You know, 4 bars no drums, 4 bars with drums. Fill into verse 1. Fill into chorus 1. Reintro. Verse 2. Fill into verse 2. They want the same fill into verse 2 as verse 1. So you better write a hooky fill. You know, none of this drummer shit. You know, you know, whatever, something that's like, you know, we're not reinventing the wheel here, kid. Yeah. You know, he was really, really tough, and it was great to have that experience, and to study with Sean Pelton, who is the house drummer. So it was like a little fetish of mine to be in a house band. And so Carson Daly it was super fun. And Carson Daly's like, he's kind of the dude who you know, turned, I guess, the millennial generation onto music. And, you know, he's kind of the last MTV personality that like knew a lot about music. You know, when you hang out with him like one-on-one, he knows everything, man. Smart guy, you know. I don't know what Carson Daly's doing. Dede, Seam Couple. I just saw Laura play at this Oisi Blues. So anyway, I got an Estonian friend of mine is in the chat. Kopel Seam.
Wow. I don't even know where it's...
I'm rambling, dude. Do you have any questions, or am I just talking the whole time now? I'm just kidding.
This is awesome. Where is Estonia in Europe? What's beside it? What borders Estonia?
I always say it's right across the water from Stockholm. Okay. And then it's just south across the water from Finland. So it's the northmost country, the most northern country in the Baltics. This is non-alcoholic, trust me. I just don't know. I don't speak English very well. It's the most northern country in the Baltics. So it's Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, and then Poland, Germany, France. So, you know, Europe kind of has that like curve. Yeah. So so it's I think it's known as a Baltic country, but it feels more Scandinavian, you know, a lot of blonde hair, blue-eyed people, you know.
Very nice.
But
a lot of good hockey players and a lot of athletic people, I'm sure.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, they have their Olympic sports are like wrestling and hammer throw and shot put, and like you'll see Estonians getting like silver, gold medals in like, you know, shot put and stuff, and they love the blues and they love jazz here. They're really there's normally around this time of year is a thing called Augusti blues, so like blues in August, and my buddy's the promoter of that, so his partner, I think, is promoting this at his house. He's got like this huge 20 acres, and so there's people camping. Like it's a full on thing out here right now. That's awesome. And people are dancing and sharing, you know, like the grill, you know, when you go to the grill and you're using the same utensils, the same handle on the grill, put the utensils down, you know, like in the buffet. Everybody's sharing stuff, and there's like zero fear here. It's so relieving. So no, it gives me hope that the future, that we have a future to be social and like to be corporately together. You know, humans we're social and we're corporate meaning like vast amounts of people doing, one thing together, and which is like worshiping. Is it all goes into like music. Going to a concert is sort of like a form of worship. You're like going to see your favorite artist, and you're being hopefully taken to some other level, and you forget about your problems, and rock concerts. And I mean, dude, I'll go to see the LA Phil perform Rachmaninoff. Rock concerts. I followed the Grateful Dead. I love all music, and my car says low battery. I think I'm going to try starting the car, because I have the okay, my car started.
Thank goodness.
There's not a low battery. Anyway, or is that my car?
I wanted to ask how the Rival Sons gig came about for you, because this has been a very humongous thing over the last decade or so of your life. How did this come about?
So during the Carson Daly years, I had a lot of ups and downs. So after we toured, Joe Firstman had that deal with Atlantic, and I mean, we were tour busing and flying places, and like bills were paid. And then so I went from, and then before that, I had a deal with Bird 3, a band you guys can look up, Bird 3 on Emergent Records. We made a record, very Foo Fighters, Husker Du, Smashing Pumpkins. Bird was from Chicago. He came up in the era of Smashing Pumpkins and all that stuff from the Chicago scene, playing the Metro and all that. And so I got in his band. We got a record deal, got signed, went on tour, opened for Veruca Salt. That's how I met all the Veruca Salt people. And then 9/11 happened, and then that just annihilated the music business for that period of time. And then they dropped us. And so like that period of my life, I was like making money, and then I was like destitute. And that's the life of a musician. So I was in that like period where I was between the record deal with Joe, and then Joe kind of getting that house band gig, and that's when I met Scott Holiday, our guitar player, and through the bass player of Bird introduced me to Scott Holiday. Scott Holiday had a whole other band going, and but he wanted to do bluesy, blues infused, like bring back that like Zeppelin, Small Faces, Cream, Hendrix, where nobody played the click tracks and everything was super loose, and the Animals, like we love Eric Burden, Van Morrison. That's like some people call it blue-eyed soul, and all that British Invasion stuff was so great. Nope, the 90s like killed. I mean, the 80s killed like that bluesy rock. They took the roll out of the rock and roll and just became rock. And I'm not bad mouthing any of that. Like hugest Motley Crue fan, Iron Maiden, Metallica. Like I love everything. I'm not bagging on it, but the 80s did take the roll out of rock pretty much. And then Dave Navarro and Jane's Addiction. When Jane's Addiction came back, I was like, oh man. And at the time I didn't know it, but it's like, oh, pentatonic blues, dude, guitar solos. Yeah. And Stephen Perkins, still one of my favorite drummers, Stephen Perkins. And Perry Farrell just like, throwing Birkenstocks at people and but the 90s, like grunge, like even took more roll out of the rock, and so early 2000s, Wolf Mother was coming out, like Jack White, Dead Leaves in the Dirty Ground. I was detailing cars, and my boss went into Coffee Bean and Tea Leaf, and I was in the passenger seat, and we're listening to K-Rock in LA, and Dead Leaves in the Dirty Ground came on, and I'm like, oh my God, who is this? At the time, we didn't have Shazam and all this. This is like 2002 or 3. I don't know when it was, but it was like right when it came out. And so the White Stripes, just like Jack White is one of my favorite artists in the music business, and he brought that loosey goose, just raw power back, and because you look at like Nirvana, Nevermind, and Super Unknown, Soundgarden, and Alice in Chains, Dirt, and that all those classic albums from the 90s they're all Pro Tool. That Pro Tools was just coming on the scene and gridding your music. And Nirvana Nevermind is like one of the first gridded, like, copy and paste stuff. Like Butch Vig has talked about all that. So the 90s sort of gridded everything, like, you know, from Blink-182, Green Day, you know, all that stuff that was coming out in the 90s was gridding everything. It was gridded. And so Scott and I were just like, fuck the grid, pardon my French. So let's bring back that old school thing. And so that's kind of how it birthed. Like, and then I played with Jay Buchanan a lot.
Yes.
And then Scott discovered Jay on MySpace, and he's like, "Hey, you know this guy, right?" And I'm like, "Yeah, he'll never join our band." And then Jay and Scott, I linked Jay and Scott together, and they got along really well. And so that's kind of the nutshell version of how we met and started. And then it was a grueling 5 years before we got Jay. So it was me, Scott, and the original bass player, and then Thomas Flowers was singing, and then we got signed to EMI, and they never did anything with us. And we kept the record, and that was before the fire. And so Jay sang on that, and that was the beginning of Rival Sons. So first album, 2009.
Wow. 6 albums and 1 EP. And you've played everywhere. You've opened for everyone, like the O2 Arena in London. Like it's corrupt. The experience that you've had throughout your whole musical life, starting from very young to all the way to now. I mean, and you're not even anywhere near my age, but man, you've really piled a whole lot of experience into your life. And so how has the ride been with Rival Sons, having some degree of success? How's that been the last few years for you?
Well, I guess success is relative.
Yeah.
I feel like we've been on the losing end of many fights, but we're like Rocky, you know, so I'm waiting for that 14th round, you know. I'm still like to go into that, you know, Rocky 2, 15th round where he finally beats Apollo. And you know, we're not even in our Rocky 3 phase where we like get our mansions and stuff. Like, I'm not sure rock music is ever gonna like be that like majestic thing it was, you know, like the heyday, you know. And everyone's asking us like, what's your tour story? What's your fate? Like, touring is not the way it used to be. Like, there's not, you know, I mean, I guess there's probably younger bands out there that are getting, I guess if you had a hit single and you got like a bust and you're young and all that stuff, like, I don't know, there's just Coke and Whores, that stuff doesn't exist in Rival Sons land. You know. So like that whole rock and roll, like money, like sign a record deal, everybody gets a S500 Mercedes bonus, you know, like that shit doesn't exist anymore. So so I'm still renting a house in you know, Ventura County in California. So I'm leasing a car, and then so now like all of our income is gone, you know, because touring is such a big part of most bands' lives. I'm wondering how everybody's getting through this, because I mean, even from where I'm sitting, I have the best seat in the house, so I'm on the drums, right? Yep. And you got the band, and you got the audience, and you got the concessions, and you got merch, then you got security, and you got the building maintenance. Then you have like delivery trucks bringing beer and food, and you know, to the venues, like merch, printing of shirts. You know, like there's so many interconnected businesses that just go into putting on one concert. Absolutely. And so like the bus company, the trucks, the lighting, the PAs, the techs, all of our techs, the Rival Sons techs are like brothers and sisters, man. And so everybody's home, and I know everybody's trying to be positive, and I'm not going to get all dark, but this is a really effed up time, and I'm wishing well everybody who's in the music business or related to it. Even sports, like sport. How do you watch sport? I can't even watch sports like without people in the crowd. And then there's people, they're like putting CGI people in some of the MLB stuff. It's like,
and the public and the crowd. It's definitely really challenging, and that's one of the reasons I started the interview series 4 months ago. Was I wanted something creative to do that was still related to music and drums, and thankfully a lot of people are available now, or more available now, to talk about things like that. So there we go.
hey, Nicholas Lucero.
Oh, that's the guy.
Is that the Nick Lucero on there?
I'm not sure. He's a great drummer from, I believe, New Mexico.
Nicholas Lucero.
Yeah.
Is a drummer from You're from New Mexico, Nick? I didn't know that. Amazing drummer. Nick is on one of my favorite Queens of the Stone Age albums.
I'm not
the Rated
sure
R.
It's the same guy, but we can ask.
Oh, okay. Nick Lucero's drummer, one of the drummers on Rated R, Queens of the Stone Age. That's the first three Queens of the Stone Age records are my favorite. They're brilliant records. Josh Homme's like, he's amazing guy, frontman, singer, songwriter, producer. So yeah.
How long have you been a Gretsch drums endorser? How did it come about, and what does it mean to you to be part of the Gretsch family?
Means everything. So Mike Nealon is a good friend. He was the Guitar Center dude in Hollywood, and so I knew him from way back. He doesn't even remember me from back then. But if you were in Hollywood, in the 2000s or whatever, and you needed to buy drum heads or a cymbal or piece of hardware or something, like Mike was the dude that he was in there, and he's like knows everything about, from Neil Peart to Stuart Copeland, and I mean Mike is the ultimate drum nerd. Anyway, that was it 2014 or 15, and we got to talking, and we set up like all my specs and everything, and we were talking. I thought he was kind of kidding, and I used to play Mayer Brothers drums, and Jack Mayer is one of the best drum makers. He makes everything out of his garage. Everything was really personal. I picked out my shells with him, and we were hitting them with mallets, and so it was a very personal thing. So I never wanted to go to a company. If I was to ever be gone from Mayer Brothers, I never wanted to go to a company with 1,000 drummers on the roster, or like be a small fish in a big pond, or one of those things. But Gretsch is like the one exception that I would have left Mayer Brothers for. And it's kind of it's a tough story because I love Jack, but when you start touring the world and everything, like being an artist isn't just like the nostalgia of like Philly Joe Jones, Max Roach, Tony Williams, Art Blakey, Mitch Mitchell, going down the line of the great Gretsch drummers. Philly Joe, did I say Philly Joe? All my favorite old drummers. Vinny's like my favorite drummer on planet Earth. And Vinny's stories with his legacy with Gretsch is a awesome story. If you ever can interview him. Did you interview him yet?
I have not yet. We'll I think
okay.
We'll work up to that. But if you know him at all, please put in a good word. I'd love to chat with him. Yeah, huge drum hero.
So USA Custom was the most closely matched to like my what do you call them, the layers of the wood, the plies. It was the most close matched to my maple, like kind of signature sound if I had one, from the Mayer Brothers. And so the USA Customs are like they're just behemoth sounds. Like so I play 26, 10 by 14, 16 by 16, and 15 by 16 and 17 by 18, or no, 16 by 18. Sorry. So I like that my floor toms to be a little bit more shallow, and so basically we just matched all the specs of the Mayer brothers. Oh, that's what I was saying a few minutes ago. When you start touring the world and like fly dates to the north of Norway, you know, in Tromsø, and you're playing all these like exotic places and stuff. Gretsch was, I guess, licensed or purchased or whatever the deal was with DW, and so they had the distribution, they had the reach all over the world, and so I was still in that great family. And I've played DW hardware since 2002, so I played DW hardware for a long time, and I used to play Remo drums. Back my first endorsement deal was Remo drums, Remo heads, Sabian cymbals, and DW hardware. So I got into the DW family real early. So I knew Garrison and Steven Vega and everybody over there. And now I got Ovation guitars for like for me and my family and stuff. They own Ovation, and DW it's a great company. Don Lombardi's an amazing dude. I love Joey Castillo. And so Mike Nealon hooked me up, got me a kit for Europe and a kit for the United States. So, and that was it was amazing. It was like a blessing because we were doing Europe more than we were doing the States. So shipping drums or renting, you know, shitty drums, because I couldn't. Mayer Brothers didn't have drums in London, or you know, John Henry's in London, or Captured Live in Germany. You know, these are the European companies everybody uses over here. So I would always have to. So I would rent DWs, and they were crappy. DWs are great drums, but DWs are not like my sound. And so when you're on tour using used gear, it's you know. I mean, you got to pay your dues, but then every time I landed in Europe, it's like I got my kit, and it's a Gretsch, and I'm in the Gretsch family, and I'm in this lineage of some of the greatest drummers of all time. It's like a over 100-year-old company. Fred Gretsch sends me Christmas cards. It's so personal, and the Gretsch family, the Lucas von Gretsch. I don't know if he's on here. He's a great guy. So like it's a family. It's a family vibe. Andrew Shreve is artist relations there, and he was Peisty, so I was with him with Peisty. So when he called me, so he goes, "I got good news and bad news." And I'm like, "Give me the bad news." He's like, "I'm leaving Peisty," and I'm like, "Oh man, what a bummer," you know. And these are just paraphrased. These are not. Don't quote me on it. And then what's the good news? And he's like, "I'm doing artist relations for Gretsch." And I was like, "Yeah." So I've been with Andrew Shreve as an artist relations since 2004. I started playing Peisty. So and any young drummers out there listening, like your artist relations is super important, because you need that like not customer service. Artist relations is basically a fancier word for customer service, because it is relational. You know, you need good artist relations, and you know, you want to have your kit arriving at a fly date. You know, is it if it's SIRs, they know your specs and how you set it up, close to how you set it up. Is there going to be a tech there if you don't have your tech with you? All these things matter. Of course, your drums matter, and like the color and the wrap and Broadcaster, Brooklyn, USA Custom, like whatever you're playing, all that stuff matters, obviously. But the other half of the music business is the business, you know. So you have to have a company that's got. So when DW was the umbrella mothership of them, I super trusted not only the family atmosphere, but the that I'd be taken care of no matter where I played on planet Earth. So.
What is that drum kit that you did the unboxing video for? Was that a
That was a
kit?
Brooklyn series, yeah.
Unbelievable. And a 26-inch bass drum with that Brooklyn.
Yeah, 26.
What do you use?
Yeah.
I had a request. A friend of mine wanted me to ask you what you use for drum heads on the bass drum.
I use the classic clear Power Dot CCPD Aquarian. So it's a clear the batter head. So I play Power Dots on all the tops of the toms, okay, and the kick. And the front head's just a single ply coated. Like if I had a signature sound, I like the smooth white head on the front, and then I tune the non-beater side. What's that called? The front head.
Resonant.
The Rezo. I tune that like my toms. I usually tune a whole step above the beater head. On my kick, I tune a perfect fourth on the Rezo above. So it's super tight, like ding, ding, ding. Yep. And then I have the felt strips and nothing inside.
Yeah.
So very, very Bonham. Bonham was the
unreal. Sounds.
Bonham was the guy who did that. Mitch Mitchell had those all those 60s drummers. They played wide open drums. We didn't start muffling shit and like pinstripe heads and like, the 2-ply heads and Fleetwood Mac and was putting towels over the drums and stuff. Ringo Starr was the first guy to like really make tea towels over the drums kind of a thing. But most like Bonham, Ginger Baker, Mitch Mitchell, even Charlie Watts, Keith Moon, that shit was tuned high and wide open. And like when you come up in the music business in the 90s and 2000s and you're playing clubs in Hollywood, like sound guys, you're like a different sound guy every night, and sound guys are just like sound guys and drummers. I wanted to have good relationships with sound guys, so I always try to work with them, but I'd always try to push I'm showing up with a bass drum with nothing inside, and sound guys are just like, ugh. And then because I tune, I'm like a tuning nerd. So if there's a frequency that was messing the sound guy up, I could find the frequency, and so I started working really well with sound guys because then they don't have to like mess with the like one EQ band, like, oh, take the 300 or the 500 out, and so I got really into tuning, and so like when you have Gretsch, like that great Gretsch sound is not just a logo or a moniker or what do you call that? Slogan? A saying, slogan. There is something that there's a legacy and a nostalgia. There's a thing, and being the jazz nerd I was, and knowing that like Philly Joe, Art Blakey, all my guys, Max Roach, all those guys were playing it. And then, Phil Collins and Vinny, the late, like, Keith Carlock's like one of my favorite drummers on planet Earth. So many guys. And then, like, contemporaries of us now are, like, Caleb Crosby, Richard Danielson with Vintage Trouble. And, so I could talk drums for hours.
Mike, it's been almost an hour. We have just under a minute left. I want to thank you so much for your time. Where can people find you on the web? Is my information up on your screen, or is it Miley on drums? Yes, it is. It will be. We'll add our hashtags and whatnot too. So where else?
Yeah, so I'm on Instagram, Miley on drums, and with a Z at the end, and my YouTube channel is Miley on drums. Like everything is Miley on drums. You can find me that way. You can DM me. I do Skype lessons and stuff like that if you want to hang and talk drums. I do my live stream every Thursday night on my channel, youtube.com/Miley on drums. And yeah, so you can find me there. All my live streams are, you can play them back. They're all recorded. They're like